And all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another week of weekly sessions. This week we have Joe. Joe, come on to video and join us for today's weekly sessions.
Good to be here, Matthew.
No, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last year and a half or so, especially, since last year's Scaling New Heights. It's been a lot of fun. You've got a great organization. So today we're going to take a little bit of time. I really want to take some time for people to get to know you first and understand a little bit more about you. And we'll dive into that in just a moment. And then talk a little bit about what to be expecting with Scaling New Heights. So sound like a plan?
Absolutely. Well, the best way to start with me is to start with what we do here at Woodard. We empower small business advisors to transform small business. Now, that sounds simplistic. Maybe even a little bit trite, but it is to us a compelling vision because we really do want to motivate pro advisors, bookkeepers, accountants, tax preparers, CPAs, Microsoft consultants, IT consultants, lawyers, anybody that consults a small business can play in this game of transformation. And then we define transformation in very specific ways downstream as far as the impact you have on your clients. But we engender transformative behaviors on the part of our accountant audience and bookkeeper audience through coaching, education, resources, and community. So Matthew, if it was a one-floor elevator ride, I would say we empower small business advisors to transform small business through education, coaching, community, and resources. So we are.
That is a big elevator ride, but I can tell you it is definitely an up elevator ride, right? Because you're taking everybody and helping them improve. So you've got a lot of people that are happy to see you here that I just want to kind of acknowledge real quick. Some great friends, Peter, Kathy, good to see you guys. Thank you. Jan on Facebook as well. I am monitoring the chat and everything else from both places. If you've got questions in Zoom, put them into the Q&A. We'll answer them there as well. And I'm going to jump in real quick, share my screen, and go back to where I was supposed to be at. You guys didn't see any of that stuff. So Joe, I would love to have you. I can tell people real quickly, of course, about you, the fact that you've trained 100,000 accounting professionals and some of the stuff you're just talking about, practice development, changing technologies. I can tell them that you've been a top 100 influencer, from 2012, 2014 through 2017, top 40 under 40, all of these different things. But I need you to do me a favor. Tell us more about the Joe behind the Joe. Like, what got you into this? What motivates you to do what you do with our community?
Yeah, well, what got me into this is I am of the community. And I'm looking at some of the names of some folks in here, and some of the folks in here have been with me in this journey of servicing small business owners with QuickBooks integrated technologies for decades. And so the passion to transform a small business was always there.
Yeah.
And I had these peers that were doing it alongside me, and we were sharing notes, and we were empathetic and sympathetic and with everything that we were doing as peers and working together. And then it occurred to me that there were not enough places. Matter of fact, back in the day, there was no real gathering place for all of the QuickBooks Pro advisors specifically. And those that really pushed the limits on QuickBooks and used add-on products, that was just for us. There were conferences where a lot of us would hang out, but there wasn't one that was designed exclusively for and just for us. There was no QuickBooks Pro Advisor conference. So we in 2009, we decided we would create one and just see who showed up. And I'm looking at the list of some of the people listening here, and you guys were there. You were there at the Crown Plaza off the side of the interstate with 250, 300 people or so that showed up that year. And it was a by us, for us event. And we didn't know what would happen. We didn't know if it would ever happen again. Intuit sent two people, and they spoke. They that was their entire involvement in that first year. But then one thing led to another, and there was a year 2 and then a year 3. And then what I learned, Matt, was that that the training was just not enough, that throughout the year, there were the needs continued, deploying the principles they learned at the conference or just dealing with the daily struggles that come up. And that's where we formed throughout the year programs. And the vision just began to evolve from education into professional communities, from professional communities into coaching, and now a wide range of resources. And you're back to the same elevator ride.
Peter's saying it was epic, he mentions. So Peter Cullen has been with you for a very long time. So is that also kind of what led to the Woodard groups, or did the Woodard groups start first? Where did those come into play in the journey?
Well, it started with the Woodard Alliance. It actually started with Scale New Heights. Then we formed the Woodard Alliance, and back in the day, it was called the National Advisor Network. We've since brand simplified. But what we found is the folks that joined the Alliance, back then called the network, they wanted to better network or more strategically network with the people in their local community. So they came to us and asked, how do we do this? Can you help us with this? And that was back in the day when meetup.com or meetup.org, whatever it's called, was really big. Maybe it still is. But they were finding that they would go to these meetups that would call themselves QuickBooks meetups, and they really weren't. They weren't of the caliber that they needed. So we decided we would create our own network of meetups, if you will.
Love it.
And now we're using Facebook, because that's the thing you use, in order for them to get together. Now, they've been in hibernation for a reason we all know full well, right? It's hard to do local groups in a pandemic, but we're still up and running. So
this is a great time for me to give a major shout out to Kathy. Kathy has done a phenomenal job with her Woodard group and taking advantage of technology to reaching out and involving so many people into her group. So Kathy, got a lot of love for you. You've done a phenomenal job. And I'm proud to say that I get to be a member of that group here and there as well. So super excited.
Yeah, Kathy's amazing.
Yeah. Can you share with me, out of all of your different, so how many years have we had Scaling New Heights so far?
This will be our 13th year.
13th year. What's one of your favorite memories of the 13 years of the Scaling New Heights?
Well, there are many. But one of my favorites, my all-time favorites, is in Atlantis. There were 2 different contests. You could win. One winner won a trip walking through a shark-infested tank of Caribbean reef sharks. Brandon Morris won, and Brandon Morris went into the tank of Caribbean reef sharks with me, and walked around with those crazy things. So but then there was a group that won the easier to accept gift of swimming with the dolphins. And so I got to swim with the dolphins with a group of small business advisors, and I got to survive the reef sharks with another.
I have so much more respect for Brandon now. And I think this same thing needs to be done again, but with alligators. And I have a person I'd like to actually suggest would be a great person to walk through it, but we'll talk about that at a different time. So
Great.
Now, okay, so that's one of your favorites. Tell me one of the most challenging experiences with Scaling New Heights.
And by the way, just so you know, Matthew didn't rehearse any of this with me, so I'm having to really come up with this stuff. But it's not hard on this one. In year two, now you have to remember this was back in 2010. The internet went out, and in year 2, we were doing method training, product training on the method product, like day-long boot camps. And that thing's cloud only. And they had made this, big investment in the conference, and people had made this. A lot of people came just to get the method certification, and we couldn't get to method. We could do our QuickBooks desktop training, which back in 2010 was a lot of our training. Yeah. I see Will English here. He was able to train on his QuickBooks point of sale desktop. You go, Will. But everything that was in the cloud was shut down to us, and was shut down for the better part of a day. And I remember that as we were walking around the hallways of the conference, there were people from the IT department carrying huge rolls of Ethernet cables over their shoulder, running around panicked. And they were running this Ethernet cable all the way down the lobbies of the hotel.
Hard
and then
line.
just taping it down as they went, trying to make shift this thing. And I don't think they got it back up till the next day. So yeah, pretty brutal.
You did a pretty amazing thing last year. During one of the most challenging years for so many people, you were able to pull together Scaling New Heights as a complete success. I was proud to be there and be able to meet up and see my friends and connect and feel alive again. And I know that had to have been a very tough decision and a tough year. Can you tell us anything about that journey?
Yes, I do. But I want to actually qualify something that Peter said, because there was a little bit of a blurring in our memories, Peter. But the Cosmopolitan was my good friend Doug Sleater's conference. But the funny thing was, he was in Vegas in 2010 and his internet went out. And I was in Vegas in 2010 at a completely different hotel and my internet went out. So I could see why you got the stories meshed, but we both had some interesting experiences. But, before I answer your question about the 2020 conference, they say, I will say that if you're one step ahead, you're a leader, 2 steps ahead, you're a visionary. And if you're 3 steps ahead, you're a martyr. So for Doug and for Joe to be doing cloud accounting technology conferences before the infrastructure could catch up with us, we'll call ourselves martyrs that year. Okay, now to answer your question.
Yeah.
So the 2020, that was a very tough year for us. So it all started where we were originally supposed to be in a completely different city in a completely different state, St. Louis, Missouri. Yep. And St. Louis, Missouri, when we couldn't do it in June 2020, could not accommodate us in the fall of 2020. So we had to go find a different venue on the rush. Okay. And just so happened they were plentiful. No, every hotel was sitting empty. So we didn't have a hard time finding one. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Buyer's market.
Yeah.
So we found one. But we had to find a hotel, not a convention center, because if there were just a couple of hundred people there, we were a convention center would swallow us whole. So we found a home in the Orlando World Conference Center. So that was the first challenge. Second challenge is we had no idea what was going to happen, if we could even host it at all. The Marriott had no idea if we could even host it at all. So we were feeling our way through week by week on it. And you guys were feeling your way through it week by week on it, and you were struggling with, do I come, do I not come? 300 brave souls actually went into the building, and and you were one of them. You were there, and 800 people signed up for our remote hybrid experience. And as we say down in the deep South, bless their hearts, because it was a tough ride for the remote people. A lot of technological challenges. This was not something we had 13 years of experience deploying. We do the Disney World of premise events, but it was definitely the local county fair of remote experiences. But you guys were so patient with us and so understanding and just so grateful we were trying to broadcast out. And I want to give shout out to Matthew too, because he helped. Without him, a lot of the connection of what was happening with the sponsors couldn't have made its way out the doors of the hotel. And you guys couldn't have explored those solutions together. So you guys really helped us. Now, I've got an interesting fact though, and I shared it on a meeting earlier today. Some of you may have been on. Okay. We can't guarantee any result. We don't know. We don't control the biologies of a virus, but the realities of a virus. But it just so happened that with 300 people under the roof, and we did our homework, we did our research, we were trying to do all the contact tracing in case there was a need to be done. We know of not one case of COVID out of 300 attendees and sponsors and sponsor reps. And it was because we put protocols in place. But more importantly, the ultimate shout out, Matthew, goes to everyone who was there, because they followed the protocols. They kept the masks on, they kept themselves socially distanced, and they played by the rules. And it made all the difference. So
I really appreciate you bringing that up. It's something that has been something I've known for a bit of time, because there's quite a group of us that were checking and connecting, but it wasn't something we could ever talk about. And we were very, very happy to privately hear that everybody was fine after the event, because that means it was a true success. So it also means that this year, like I know that some of the questions, and I hate to even bring it up this way, but it gives great faith to the fact that this year we still have a bit of a question and concern. Let's just be real about that,
Of
right?
course you do. Absolutely.
But if we've done it once, it still requires us being intelligent about our knowledge of, or our quest for knowledge, but we can do this again and be in a good environment for it. So I'm excited.
We can do it
that.
again, and we'll make the environment as safe as we possibly can. There are two different key variables, and everybody has to make the decision that is best for them. There
Absolutely.
is a vaccine and there is a Delta variant. Those are two new realities, right? One doesn't completely offset the other, we've learned. We're also learning a lot about T cell stimulation for those that have natural immunity, which I do because I actually got it a month later at Thanksgiving at my brother's house. So I made it through Scaling New Heights with 300 people, couldn't make it to a family Thanksgiving with about 20. But again, you have to do your own research.
Yeah.
You have to do your own learning. And I want to hear everybody, I want you to hear me say, you need to do what's best for you.
Yep.
We empower you guys 365 days a year with a tremendous amount of virtual resources. We want you to do what you're comfortable doing. We'll be in Fort Worth. We'll make it as safe as possible, and you do the rest.
So why did you choose the location? What's unique about the location this year? Besides it being close to Vic's house. Hey, Vic. What's unique about this location, or what are you excited about for this location?
Well, I'm excited about getting our cowboy on. And we are really getting serious about getting the cowboy on. Now, I am the farthest thing from naturally cowboy that you can get, but everybody can play the part, right? Okay. So if you want to see Joe in a cowboy hat, I will stop short of the boots. But if you want to see Joe, if you want to see me in a cowboy hat, you guys want to see
Joe in cowboy boots, also put a message in the comment on Facebook.
Because I know what they're going to vote for.
Well, yeah, of course. I got to make you feel bad. So we're working on the boots. I think let's see what we can do with that. So. Oh
my gosh. So I'll give you a scarf, Tanya. That's as far as you're going to get. All right. But I'll do the cowboy stuff. I'll do the line dancing. We're going to have a lot of fun. But we've rented Billy Bob's Honky Tonk. It's the largest honky tonk in the world. We're bringing in the music. We're going to have the barbecue. Everything's going to be a big experience. And on the exhibit floor, Expensify is bringing in a mechanical bull. And there is going to be a mechanical bull contest in which I will not participate because I'm 53 and I don't have Keyman insurance. I've got a conference to run and all those things. But if you want to participate,
let me up my insurance first. Let me up the insurance and we'll talk about it. Go. You wear boots, I might participate. We'll do a trade-off maybe.
But if you with all the waivers you'll sign, if you want to participate in the contest, the person who stays on the bull the longest, you have to remember that the contest is even, so it's going to be cranked up slowly as we go. You will probably get thrown off, or you're going to have to do the safety gesture. Yeah. But the point is, whoever stays on the longest will win an all expense paid trip to Scaling 2022. That is flight voucher, suite at our hotel at the 2020, I almost said the city, at the 2020 location, and complimentary registration, complimentary passes to all socials and special events. So stay on that bull.
So am I allowed to hire a delegate to write it for me?
No, you cannot have a prize.
Okay, it was worth a try. That's fine. Okay, so this year's show, I definitely, like, part of my goal, and I've been talking with Elizabeth as some ideas of ways we can really try to help draw some extra attention and knowledge of what's going to be happening this year's show. And the reason I want to do that, you may not be familiar, but actually my first time having the chance to present or be on stage in this industry was Scaling New Heights.
Oh, I did not know that.
I was on a panel with a good friend of mine, Tanya. We were doing a construction panel that was put on by Notify, and I was the moderator of the panel. It was the first time in the industry. I had done stuff in other industries, but it was great, and it gave me that chance. And it also really pushed me forward because I had set a personal goal to be able to speak at QuickBooks Connect by 2019. And that helped motivate that to happen. So thank you for that. I really, really appreciate it. So what I'd like to know is for this year's show, can you tell us about some of the presenters that, like keynote speakers that'll be there? What's some of the stuff that's going on there? And then we got a couple slides to talk about like the different channels that'll be happening. But
Yeah,
what's some of
different
the,
tracks. Yeah.
you got it.
And I'm particularly passionate about this year's tracks too. So I want to make sure we get to that. But the theme is Unstoppable. We picked the theme in January of 2020. We always pick the theme for the conference 18 months out from the conference, and we do it at our annual corporate retreat. It takes 18 months because it's an 18-month planning cycle. Okay. So in January 2020, we came up with the theme Unstoppable before we ever had heard the word COVID. It just so happens that it's the first conference after the sort of the twilight of the pandemic, So what do we mean that if we didn't have COVID in mind, what do we mean by unstoppable? We'll get there in a minute. But just from the theme, by the nature of what we're talking about, right? Persistence, resilience, determination, intentionality, a tenacity. So we needed main stage presenters who exemplified that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you guys, with the proper spoiler alert, you can make a choice here. If you go to our website and you look at the names of, you don't have to write them down because it's on our website. But there are two particular keynote presenters. They're all great, but two particular ones that you could look at some of their YouTube videos before you come. But it will be like watching part of a movie before you go watch the movie, right? So you can decide if you want to do the spoiler alert or not. But their YouTube videos will inspire you. Well, Inky Johnson is our featured keynote presenter. He played for the Tennessee Volunteers. Interesting fact, I was at the game where Inky was injured. Okay. And we had no idea at the time that he would never be able to play again, but he lost the use of his arm, and he was knocked out of what was certain to be a professional football career.
Wow.
He had a choice to make. How do I respond? Am I going to be unstoppable, or am I going to be stoppable? And he made the unstoppable choice. And I'll let the rest of that be Inky's story.
I love it.
Deshauna Barber had a series of life events where she met failure after failure after failure. Dozens of failures. And I'm not going to tell you what she failed at because that would be a spoiler alert. But some of the failures she failed at had national stages, and she was not going to be stopped. It was time 10 or 12 or 15 or 20. She'll have to give you the count until she finally realized that through persistence, you will eventually achieve what you seek to achieve. And then the third story that is a lot of fun is the story of Debbie Stoffer, who's also there on our main page. Debbie Stoffer may be the most relatable to 75% of our female audience of the three, because Debbie Stoffer is a business coach, and she wasn't always, but she's just the sort of person that is unstoppable by nature. And when she had two children and was pregnant with the third, she decided that there was a problem she was experiencing. I won't give it away. And she decided that she would solve her own problem. And while she had two in diapers and a third on the way, she created an invention, a game-changing invention that helped mothers of small children. And it was such an incredible invention that Oprah invited her to be on the Oprah Winfrey Show, pregnant with her third child, two others in tow, talk about how unstoppable and innovative of a mother she was. She went on while raising all three of those children. They're still all under her roof. She went on to go back, get a master's degree, and become a business coach with extreme levels of success. These are the kinds of stories you're going to hear about at Scaling New Heights.
I love it. Have you noticed that for some reason, the stories we always seem to love to hear or talk about the most, or the ones that resonate the most, they all always have a chapter to which they've gone through some hard struggles, right? And it's those moments that define a person, that they learn what they can or cannot do in life and whether they're going to give up or not. So to not be unstoppable.
And it's about that choice. It's about choice, tool set, determination, and being surrounded by a community You can't be alone.
Together, we all succeed, as I love to say. So that takes us to what to expect this year at Scaling New Heights. So we've got, I stole these from your presentation earlier, but I got permission to plagiarize you by you talking about it.
But right? I don't think it's plagiarism if I'm the guest and you give me the credit. But okay. Yeah, so this is the way the tracks lay out. And, the tracks are addressing a series of challenges here. So if we're not being unstoppable from COVID, what do we have to be unstoppable against? What's the headwind, right? Yeah. Technology disruptions, enterprise level competitors, hyper commoditization, stifling workloads, difficulty recruiting and retaining professionals, an imminent retirement bubble, clients who devalue accounting and bookkeeping services. There are others, but we found these to be the ones that present the strongest headwind. Now, I'm happy to provide that list to you, Matt. Actually, you have it if you want to send it out to your folks here. But and then we'll be presenting it again on September the 1st in another one of these sneak peeks where I actually have drill downs on each one of those challenges. But to put the list out there, I know that as I was reading that list, people listening in are thinking, I can relate to that. Oh yeah, that too. Right. There are a couple that just really said, that's my headwind. And whichever ones they are, I want you to understand that as a community, we're all facing them to one degree or another. So when we put that list out on the board, when we were planning as a team and we were brainstorming, what do we need to do? Because a theme for us is not about a pretty picture. A theme for us is addressing the needs of accountants and small business advisors and bookkeepers. So when we put that list out there on the board, we asked ourselves, what is the way to address this? And we start educationally, and then we find a word that defines all the education. And that's how we arrive at that's our process. The word we arrived at is to face these, you must be unstoppable. Then that begged the question, how? How do you become unstoppable? So if you'll put that back up there, we answer the question, how, through the tracks of the conference. And there are two different ways that you're unstoppable. One way is to be the unstoppable professional, and the other is to be the owner of, the steward of, the manager of an unstoppable practice. Now, these are separated here visually, but they are intertwined. If you build an unstoppable practice and you're an unstoppable person, it will stop your practice. And the inverse is true as well. So if you look at the elements of an unstoppable practice is focused on advancement, not just survival or maintenance. It's focused on modernization and innovation, not just status quo. It's focused on strategic pricing. And of all of them, Matthew, I found this is the one that the advisor and bookkeeper and accountant community struggles with the most, probably because of the hyper commoditization problem and scaled competitors problem. But we struggle with the pricing the most. Yep. And until we solve the pricing problem, we don't have the fuel to address the other problems, right? And then the client experience, right? Yeah. So the client experience is part of the equation, because a lot of people are killing it on advancement of their practice. They've got great modernized systems. Maybe even they price well, but the way there's not a connection between the value they can bring and the value that the client perceives them as being able to bring or positioned to receive. So client experience is a big part of it. Now, if you have all four of these parts, you ultimately say an unstoppable practice is defined by that sentence on the right. It's a practice someone would want to buy. Yeah. But to be led by an unstoppable human/professional. So you can see there's a human element here, holistic well-being. We've never and probably never will again offer at Scaling New Heights because it's so specific to this particular theme. We're going to be focused on nutrition. We're going to be focused on physical well-being. We're going to be focused on mental well-being. And we're going to be doing it from a clinical perspective, not a metaphysical one. So everything here is going to have a science behind it. But we're also going to be focused on the elements that connect who you are as an independent, happy, healthy, whole person to your business, like the vision, the mission, and the purpose, which is where I started when you asked, who am I? Who am I as an independent, healthy, happy, whole person is inseparable from the change I want to see in the world, which is inseparable from the higher principle I follow, and all of that's infused into my business. So that's what I mean about harmonizing an independent and functional and sustainable human with the practice that endures.
I know that to kind of correlate with what you're talking about, good friend Linda is working with Carmen, and they're doing a session, I believe, specifically around yoga and using that in life. So as a person who openly admits nobody should ever look to me for work-life balance. I am the worst example of it. I'm just going to say that complete. So you'll know what sessions I'll be in when I'm not teaching, is trying to figure that part out. So you're right. There are different ways for everybody to learn from this event, for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, so you had one other slide of information that I stole. I want to share real quick here as well. And you may have touched base on some of it already, but so what are we talking about?
There's a progression here, Matthew. I'm so glad you put this one up, because to talk about sort of like to begin with the end in mind and look at what the end product looks like, well, that's great. But what's the pathway to get there? So the pathway for the unstoppable practice starts with standardization and modernization, an operational manual for your business. Yeah. You can start at level 1, then you get more and more specific as it matures over time. And then you let that become curated through your team, democratized and perfected over time. But it's extremely important that on that first circle, it is also modernized. And the biggest mistake people make is they think, I have to go pick my technology and then I can go build my process. Or they think, let me build my process and then go shopping for the technology. And they are not sequential. You have to build them in concert. You have to be vetting and exploring the technologies like Bill.com and Dex, Tipalti, Mineral Tree, just anything at all that will HubDoc, auto entry, anything at all that will modernize your process. And then let those inform the way that you build your own process. Do it in concert. But when you have the product of a modernized, as well as automated, as well as standardized process, you're ready to generate the next circle, which is real-time financial information. And as I said in the meeting earlier, but in case you missed it, folks, this is the key takeaway. Real-time financial information serves 2 critical go-forward pathways. One, it gives you the treasure trove of information you need to add value to your clients. And it doesn't mean you have to become a CFO. It just means cash flow projections, accounts receivable analysis and management, things that are already in your wheelhouse, but now you can do them with meaning because the books are real time. But it also creates a much needed practice distinction, because less than 20% of professional bookkeepers provide real-time financial information in a way that scales. So you're instantly in the top 20 percentile before you ever even do the other things like cash flow and accounts receivable analytics.
And what percentage of those charge right for
differentiation? Because I could see you like want to. It's through differentiation and distinction that we break past the pricing barriers. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so that led to it. The question I was asking is, I think that probably there are some that are offering some of those real-time, financials, but are they actually charging for it as well?
They're not charging correctly for it. I've seen that so much. Yeah. And they don't know what they're offering and how powerful it is. And there's a value to price discrepancy that has to be reconciled. And it may not be that you can do it with that same client, because that same client has a price anchor you've embedded, that you've engineered into the relationship. It might have to be from the next new client. But differentiate between after the fact record keeping, where they know where they stand 12 times a year, 2 weeks after the fact.
Past, present, future.
Yes, real time. And once you draw the distinction in the client's mind, you have 2 different products. You have a Toyota and a Lexus.
Same product. Maybe we should go Lexus, Mercedes.
Well, it's Toyota and Lexus are made by the same company.
Yeah, same company. I kid. Yeah, but so now, to be completely honest, this concept that we're talking about, this is something like the idea of like, we need to do this expansion. It's been around for some time and people have talked about it forever. So what is it that makes it unique for Scaling New Heights? Is it the people that you're bringing in for teachers? Like, what makes it really unique that people are going to be able to walk away?
Am I just a really good promoter? Yeah, let's just face it. Okay. So no, actually, thank you for asking, because it gives me the opportunity to say, no, it's so much deeper than that. I think that was a rhetorical question, but thanks for the softball. So no, it's much more than that, because in Scaling New Heights, you have 130 breakout selections. Most conferences don't give you more than about 30 or 40. In Scaling New Heights, you have 4 days. Most conferences are 2.5. But forget the breadth for a second. It's also the depth. This is the most advanced training on the planet. But let's just forget that for a second. It's the community that you engage in beyond the conference, throughout the year, and in between conferences that makes a world of difference. And even if you only do like you and Tanya did. Tanya met you on the panel. That's what she said in the chat. You guys, formed a relationship, has nothing to do with me. And I love hearing those stories. Yep. But if you choose to continue to ride the rails of the Woodard family in a formal way, between the conferences, we have the Woodard Alliance, we have the Woodard groups, we have our coaching program that will take the principles you learn at Scaling New Heights and methodically form them out inside your practice, right? So, but if you take any of those things by themselves, they're great. Let's stack them all together, because that's the recipe. It's the breadth of training, the depth of training, and then the relationships that you form at the conference, where you can optionally engage in those relationships formally through our year-round programs.
So I'd love to also hear is kind of some final thoughts towards this is, any tips towards success that you would have? And one that I'd like to contribute first right off the bat is, we always hear from everybody, you want to go with a purpose. I won't go too deep into that one, but I do believe it's important that you try to book out time at any convention to just be out in the hallway. It is so important, because the relationships, now it doesn't mean you go there and you don't attend anything. Choose the ones you want to attend with purpose, but then make sure there's time to connect to people, because that's how when you make a friend, guess what? You get to talk to them all year long, and you get to pick the brain all year long, right?
That's exactly right. And to give you another example, there are 4 different they're very small. They're either sole practitioner or maybe one employee. They're 4 ladies that own 4 amazing bookkeeping and QuickBooks consulting practices. They met at a conference years ago. They formed a group, and I didn't even know that the group existed. So just to let you know how these relationships, form out, until just 2 or 3 months ago. And they've been together for years, and they've been business building together for years, cross-referring services for years. And all I did was the spark. They got to be the fire. The conference was just the spark. And when I learned at what they were able to accomplish, it was not 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. It was a multiplier. Impact of those folks being together. So we say there are 3 core value propositions of Scaling New Heights. I suppose it could be said of a lot of conferences. That one of them is education. Another one is inspiration, or actually 4. Another one is exploration. So our inspiration comes from the main stage, the exploration from our exhibit hall, because you need to be staying current on those technologies. And then finally, the professional relationships. So if you just come for the education and then go sit through the main stage and then walk around and get the keychains and the chapstick bottles on the exhibit floor, and that's all you do, you're going to miss out on the heart of the show, which I agree with Matt, happens in the hallways.
So I don't know if you heard about it, but when we did Scaling New Heights it was in Utah. I came up with this crazy idea of doing the 17 shirt challenge instead of 17 hats. So Linda and I went around and did a live stream at each one of the vendors. If they had a shirt to give us, we would take the shirt, put it on, and do a quick live stream, put it out there so they could promote their company. And we went from place to place to place to place to place. And we just barely managed to get 17. And of course, at the time, Chris Wise, love that guy. One of the best human beings in the entire world. He was with QBox at the time, and we ended there. He was the one, great guy. It was so much fun.
He had 17 shirts on?
Oh, dude, it was so hot. It was so hard to get them off too. Like the videos were on my Facebook thing, but it was a lot of fun. It was just a creative way to like engage.
Hmm.
So I'm looking forward to finding some creative ways to engage with the sponsors again this year and the different people attending. So this is a good time. I'm actually going to post a quick poll for everybody. I want to know out of the people watching and such, who's going to be attending this year for Scaling New Heights. We'd love to know. And then, of course, if the answer is yes, I'd love to hear. Hopefully, you're coming to my sessions. Yay!
Oh, it didn't let me vote. I was going to say yes. Panelists can't
Yeah,
vote. Yeah. I think you knew the answer, though.
you kind of have to be there, right?
It's kind of obligatory.
Exactly. So I will force you into kind of committing to us doing another interview live stream when I'm there. You know, I love to do that kind of stuff.
I would love to do that.
It's how the whole reason QB Community Live got started was the idea of, again, together we all succeed, but it was also going to these different conferences, trying to live stream, show people what they're like, because I believe that the more people we have that engage these events, it will change not only their business, but their life. It really will help introduce you to more people. So I'd like to ask one other question, which is, if people want to present an opportunity to speak at a future Scaling New Heights, be involved, get engaged, maybe be part of your, you do a monthly, what am I trying to say, newsletter. How can people contribute to that stuff? How do they get seen to do this?
Yes, absolutely. So there's several ways that you can engage if you have a story to tell. One is the Woodard Report, and it is our media arm. It has 60,000 annual readers of your peers. So just know the audience. But somebody like Tanya Schulte she already has started writing on construction topics is great, because now 60,000 of her peers know she's a construction expert. Think about the power of that. And we of course don't charge for that, because there's a win-win baked in. We're getting great content. Tanya's getting a great brand exposure. She gets to tell her story. So that's called the Woodard Report. And then there is another way you can engage throughout the year by just asking. If you want to speak at Scale New Heights, just let us know and submit something called a call for papers. That's what it's called in the speaking circuit. It's as simple as coming to woodard.com, chatting, even if it's after hours, we'll get it the next day. I would like your call for papers. I'd like to be in your call for papers. We'll get you the packet, and you submit the sessions, and we can't, of course, guarantee that they'll be accepted. We get hundreds and hundreds of submissions a year, but you'll never get a yes if you don't try. So
it's well said. Very, very well said. Any last questions, comments that you'd like to kind of add in? I'm going to share your contact information here real quick.
Yeah, well, the comment I would make is I am available. My favorite thing to do in this whole wide world is to interact with folks who are small business advisors. So direct message me there at Joe Woodard. You're welcome to do so. I will reply. You can email me. My email address is my first initial last name at woodard.com. It's no secret. But I will tell you, I got to get a new picture, because the guy there has hair. I don't. I don't know how that happened.
I'll work. I can update it for you and send it back over to you.
That's my brother who has hair. That's not me. But yeah, so just Jay Woodard at woodard.com, and let's talk.
Perfect. And so I always like to let everybody know kind of what's coming up. I will say, Joe, we would love to be able to have you come back. Of course, it's, these are the relationships that if we have you coming back at least a couple times a year, staying connected to the community, telling us what's new and fresh and coming up, it's so, so important. So we'd love to have you back, of course.
I'd always love to be here.
Thank you. So we've got coming up on September 9th, I've actually got a special guest coming up, Paul Park. Paul is a gentleman who I met through the community. He joined in the community and reached out to me for a little bit of mentorship, I guess you could say. And, it was pretty impressive. I'll let him tell the story, but through our conversations, he was able to quickly adjust how he does pricing and price accordingly to already be boosting and growing a great, firm for himself. So he's going to tell you about how you can earn what it takes to earn your own tribe. That'll be coming up pretty soon here. Other things that I've got going at this time, I've been diving into Clubhouse. Joe, have you guys with Woodard started looking into Clubhouse at all?
No, we've not.
we should talk about it. It's a pretty impressive area that, when done correctly, I've met a phenomenal person, Kate Keese, who I'm partnering up with. She's actually an interior designer who has rebuilt her own brand to 166,000 followers. Just absolutely amazing stuff. When you hear her story of, basically she's bootstrapped her entire business. So we're building a group called Bootstrap Your Business for Clubhouse. And it's just all about going in, sharing knowledge with each other. Again, together we all succeed. So appreciate your time today. I appreciate everybody joining us for this conversation. I will also say that the votes are boots. So we will be expecting you to be bringing your boots, and it looks like I will be riding a bull.
Democratically arrived at decision. I'm not sure, but anyway, okay, whatever.
My show, I get to fix the answers. That's good. So absolute pleasure. Everybody, as always, here's wishing you all a very successful week.